Hi guys. So I just wanted to review sort of one of the types of media bias that we're going to look at today. So yesterday you looked at bias in the way the same story could be told from one news outlet to another news outlet. Today you're going to look at coverage as a whole. So instead of looking at just one story and how that story is told, you're going to look at what stories are being told. What stories are two different news outlets focused on, and what does that mean? And to do that, a really good way to help us understand where we see bias when we're looking at things like that is thinking about something called selection bias. So selection bias relates to which types of stories are being told or included in coverage as a whole. So rather than looking at an individual story, you're looking at like which ones are prioritized, which ones does that channel spend more time focused on, all of that. And to understand selection bias, I think one really easy way to understand it is to think about if I was sending an email at the end of the year, or I was talking at the end of the year to your parents, and I was going to tell a handful of stories that came up over the year. If I had a selection bias that was pointed negatively towards you, maybe in class you normally do your work, you're normally following expectations, all that, but there were 3 times during the year when you weren't, and I had to like redirect you and you're really off task. If I showing selection bias really against you, I may lead with those 3 stories, right? I could have told stories from any point in the year, but instead I'm in my bias, I'm choosing to only give the 3 negative ones. So that would be one example of selection bias. It also doesn't have to be as straightforwardly like good or bad types of stories. It could also be like, if you really care about environmental advocacy, maybe your blog or your news site has a lot more stories on climate change than another site does. So it doesn't have to be good or bad. It can be through other lenses. But to do that today, you are going to open this cool interactive media bias chart to choose 2 different sources to compare. So you're going to try to choose a source that is more on the center left or a source on the right. If you don't know what to do, you can just use NPR and Fox News like we did yesterday. And you'll see if you click on one of these sources, I didn't mean to zoom. If you click on one of the sources, you can then have it open up. And you'll be able to go to their website. And so you'll open 2 sources that are on 2 different sides of the spectrum. And you may need to click on either see, a lot of them have hot topics, and you can click on George Floyd because we're going to compare the coverage of the protests. Or you can just go to US or national. There's a lot of different things like that because you want to be looking specifically at news about what's going on in the United States, and that's related to the protests. And so once you open up 2 sites that are on different sides of the bias rating, you will complete this chart, which is basically comparing the type of words and phrases and ideas are coming up repeatedly in the headlines, and what aspects of the protest seem to be emphasized. So in this, I see that's relatively sympathetic to the police. Oh, National Guardsmen are hospitalized. So I'm seeing the damage done to police is one thing that might be emphasized. And I'd have to look at more videos to confirm that, or more headlines to confirm that. But so far, that's one aspect of the story that seems to be emphasized, that cops are getting hurt in these protests, right? And that aspect might not be emphasized on the other side. So that's your work for today, and then ends in a quick synthesis question. But it's very similar to the work we were doing yesterday. It is just a little bit broader. Instead of looking at one story, you're looking at the coverage as a whole on the 2 different websites. Okay, have a good one. Reach out if you have any questions.